So there are a lot of people trying to get into IT, and I understand why. It's one of those things that everybody really wants to do. It's a lucrative career. It's very well looked upon right now. A lot of people think it's a pretty cool way to go, and I would agree with that. So I want to give a little bit of my advice on how to get into IT. So for me, I was a bit of a loser in my early 20s. I didn't do much of anything, but what I eventually decided to do was get into IT. And I hear a lot of commercials on the radio for NJIT or these private colleges that kind of try to sell you on their IT program. The first piece of advice I can give is don't jump into one of those things. If you're in one, that's fine. I would say it's better than nothing. I wouldn't say stop if you're far enough into it. But the truth is, you can get a much better education at a university for a lot less money. So what I did was I went to a community college for the first 2 years, and then I transferred to a university, a publicly funded state university is what I would recommend, because the state universities are not that expensive in a lot of states, and they're definitely not more expensive than these NJIT, ITT Tech type organizations, and the degree you get from them will mean a lot more. I was also very impressed with the education I got, but I can't really compare it to these other places because I've never gone there. But I highly doubt that it's inferior to them. I do think that they are for profit. They're just trying to get your money, and they will probably teach you too. But at the same time, are you really getting a good deal? What do you have to put on your resume at the end of the day when you go to one of those places? I don't think those are a good deal. I would further, look into a university than I would going to one of these private organizations that has commercials on the radio. I mean, somebody's paying for those commercials on the radio. But anyway, what I did was I started out, right? I started going to a community college in a small town, and I was teaching taekwondo to kids at a little taekwondo gym. And I got lucky. I'm not gonna lie. I got lucky. An opportunity was put on my lap, but I think it's worth mentioning because it's an opportunity that a lot of people may not have taken if they were in my shoes, and it's something that I really, really am glad I did. I was approached by a parent of a student who had heard I was going into IT, and he ran a small company doing SEO work for other companies, kind of contract work, right? The biggest company they did work for was a well-known company that sells sex toys, and that's not particularly glamorous work, but I took it hands down. To me, and this is how you should look at it too, this is my opportunity to start my day one on my resume. This is where my experience starts in IT. And it was SEO work, it was in WordPress, and a lot of it was very redundant, but I liked it. It was a good job. And it didn't pay well. It was pretty much minimum wage hourly for a college student. But I did get to work remote. That was nice. I didn't get a lot of technical exposure at first, right? At first, what I was mostly doing was data entry, right? Entering entries into forums and whatnot so people could see it on Google, and people would be more likely to visit the websites, and more so, Google would be more likely to put their websites higher in the rankings. So that went pretty well. What I did notice was something I wish I had taken more advantage of at the time, and I think I did pretty good, but if I could do it over again, I would have done this more. When you're working a small job like this, what you are doing is you're hunting for your opportunity to get your hands dirty. You'll go into meetings or you'll have communications with people that speak about the problems that they're having, and they might not go that deeply into technical detail. What you need to remember is that every technical problem has a solution. Now, interpersonal problems, maybe that's your thing, and maybe if it is, that's a path you can go down to. It's not something that I really wanted to do, but for me, when we would see a technical problem, what I would try to do is put myself in there, even if I didn't have the experience. Because something I realized over the course of my life is that everybody's just kind of doing their best. And not really anyone, even senior developers, I can say that where I work, all the time. We have technical problems come up, and the senior developers don't know how to technically deal with it. They're in the same boat that I am, and that maybe that you would be. That they have a technical problem, they don't know how to deal with it. What I recommend you do in those situations is throw yourself in there. Sit down as fast as you can when you have a moment. Do a little bit of research. See if this is something that can be done. Can it be done? If it can be done, how much would it cost? And if it doesn't cost anything, how hard would it be to do? And that's a big thing, because generally, if it costs money, you'll have somebody backing you, some kind of company that makes it easy on you. If it's kind of an open source solution, say, it's going to more be on you. You're not going to have any support. And that's okay. The thing is that these systems get set up by people just like you. And if you look at a technical problem like that and you can find a feasible way to do it, even if you don't know how to do it right at that moment, throw yourself in there. Say, hey, I figured out there's a way we can do this. Can you make this my project? And the reason that you do that is because this is fuel for your resume, basically. This is something that you can do. Say that, I'll give you an example. Somebody is trying to set up a certain kind of content management system, right? They need something to keep track of images or music or whatever it might be that they are struggling with, where they, maybe they're not talking to you. Maybe you're just a bystander in a meeting, or they just mention it to you in passing, and they say, yeah, we have this problem. We're not sure what we're going to do about it. We're looking into things. And you should inquire about that problem. Well, what's going on? What's the issue with it? Get kind of the endpoints of it. Figure out what are the goals, right? What are the goals, and what are we trying to do? So then you can sit down, you can do your research, and you can say, hey, if I was just like sitting around at home and I wanted to do this, how would I do it? Chances are in tech, there's a way you can do it out of your own apartment. And that's kind of the stuff that I like to do. And hopefully it's the thing that you like to do, I would say, because liking this stuff will make your life a lot easier if you're going into IT. But basically, you figure out what's going on, hatch a plan, bring your plan, and see if they'll let you do it. And hey, maybe it involves some coding in PHP, those were the kind of things that would come up, and that's something that you should not let scare you, because there are a lot of people out there doing PHP, right? What's the difference between you and them? You think they're smarter than you? I don't know, but probably they just know something that you don't. And the thing is, with the internet right now, you can go and you can learn what you need to learn, and you can patch things together. You can copy paste off Stack Overflow if you want to, and at the end of the day, if you can get something working and solve this technical problem, you're opening up a lot of doors for yourself. And even if those doors don't go anywhere, you can put it on your resume, you can say you did it in a work environment, and you can say that in interviews, and that's the thing. There's a thing that happens to a lot of people where they're like, well, I did this, but I just kind of patched it together, and, I didn't really know what I was doing. No, put it on your resume. Let me tell you a short story. Basically, I was an IT major, and I was really interested in servers. I thought it was interesting that there were all these websites out there and servers, and our school had a server that we could communicate with, and I wanted to know why I couldn't have that. Turned out I could. And so I just started exploring it, put together a server, eventually built a website, set up a database behind it, made it where people could log in. And I did all that just because I wanted to do it. And that experience helped me in the long run. But what happened was, I was underconfident in it. I didn't think anything of it. And I went to this thing at the school where Microsoft held an event where they would review people's resumes. In some points, they were trying to find talent, right? And this story doesn't end as well as it could for me, perhaps. I mean, I didn't end up working for Microsoft. I didn't even get an internship. But I went in there and I showed them my resume, and I started getting really nervous because I'm like, okay, these are Microsoft people. These are some of the best in tech. What am I doing here? But then they started asking me questions. Well, what do you do? What do you like to do? And I had been working on the server at that time, and all I could do was just spit that out. I've been working on this server. It's running this website, markspot.us. And I have a database. And then they looked at my resume, and they said, "Well, why isn't that on your resume?" And I was literally speechless. And I said, "Well, I don't know. Should it be?" And I remember the guy looked at me and said, "Yeah." And so I put it on my resume after that, and didn't get any jobs from Microsoft. Did push kind of hard, but didn't get a call back. Didn't get anything. I also didn't let that slow me down, because I understood that I was a little early on, and I was just happy for the good advice, because that's why they were there, was to do resume reviews. That was what I could get out of it. That was most of my end, and I did. So I guess my point is that I got my hands dirty, right? And I did it just because kind of I wanted to. It was something that interested me, and I just decided to do it. And then I didn't really give myself any credit for it. But what I can tell you from having worked in IT now for several years is that is IT. It's those little things that you do, those little side projects, those little hobbies that you've done. They are just the same as what you'll do in IT. There's really no difference. It's one of those things that you don't think about at the time. It's easy to think, oh well, that's just something I patched together, right? It doesn't really mean anything. What I can tell you after working for a while is there's really about no difference. The main difference, I'd say, is in a work environment you will have more red tape that you have to go through, but you're going to be sitting in your work environment once you get there, and you're going to have problems come up in your meetings. And what I would suggest is say, hey, I know how to solve that problem. I mean, that's your job, right? It's your job is to solve the technical problems. They wouldn't be talking about them just for their own health. They are looking for somebody to jump in and help with the problem. And one of the scariest things about getting your hands dirty is you feel like you might be putting yourself in over your head, that you're not that good at these things. You don't understand these things. There's code in this that you don't even have any experience with, that when you look at it, it looks like a foreign language to you, right? And the thing that you have to realize is these are things that you can learn a lot more quickly than you think. And if what you're solving is a simple problem, when I say simple, if it is let's say it's just, there's one thing, right? One thing that needs to be done. It's probably been done before, right? You could probably go online and find where other people have solved that problem. One of the biggest things that would happen to me is I would go in at that first job I was telling you about for the company that worked for the sex toy company, and I would go in and I would be working on code even though I had no idea how PHP worked. It was something that scared the heck out of me, but I also knew I needed to do it. It was one of those things that I looked at and I'm like, okay, I don't understand this, but I want to. I need to understand this. This is important. And it hurt me every day that I wasn't an expert at it. What I realized later is that really everybody working on it is not an expert on it. They're doing what I was doing. They were doing their best. So I would change strings in this PHP code. They just say, go to this code, go to line 13, find where it says, welcome person from Iowa, and change it to, we're having a sale today, right? Now, this was simple to do. Simple instructions could tell you how to do it. But then, as time went on, through the different location websites, I started noticing the PHP templates were different. And we would need to change things in a way where I could tell by what they were saying, like, okay, they want this to be this way, and I bet you they don't realize this template is out of date. And so I would go ahead and change that template. Of course, what I would recommend here, especially if you're not going to tell anybody that you're doing it, is get a nice text editor, copy and paste the old code before you start making changes to it. That way, if anything goes wrong, you can just put the old stuff back. You wasted some time maybe, but you're right back where you started, right? No big deal. And what I can say is I wish I had done more of that. I wish I had really jumped at it saying, hey, I can change this little thing and it would work a little bit better. You know, it's hard to do that when you're starting out. And honestly, the experience I got was, definitely worth it. Um, I don't really regret anything. And I worked that job for 2 years, and it's on my resume today. It helped me um, more than I know, probably. And a lot of people are not lucky enough to have that happen to them, that they're working at an unrelated job and they just have somebody come up to them and offer them something like that. What I would recommend is look for it, right? Look for that kind of thing. Look for the low level things. I mean, if it's help desk and you're starting out in IT, do help desk because that'll give you a few things. That'll give you customer service experience, right? And a lot of us, I mean me particularly, I'm not looking to do customer service, right? That's not what I want my career to be. But it's useful because if you've done customer service, employers look at that and they say, okay, this guy has interpersonal skills, right? So that's two sides of the same coin. You can see, customer service, help desk, and then interpersonal skills, right? You've probably heard developers use that term. You got to build up on your interpersonal skills, right? That just means dealing with stakeholders, dealing with customers. You're going to have to do that these days in IT. And in any kind of development field, you're going to have to do that because there's going to be somebody out there that wants this thing that you're making. And they are probably really not going to know what they want. And as you go on in your project, you're going to have this issue where you do something and you show it to them and they realize that's not at all what they had in mind, even though it's exactly what they said to do. And it's not their fault. I mean, try being on the other side of it, thinking in your head ethereally of what you want to see. And then once you start seeing it, you start thinking about it. That's not something I normally have to deal with, but I'm just saying I understand it. And it's, you have to have a good attitude is one of my biggest things. You have to have a good attitude with this stuff. Everybody's just trying their best. We're trying to have a good product in the end, and that's what we're going to work towards, right? So, yeah, have a good attitude. Try to throw yourself in there and try to be that guy that is thinking about ways we can do it. Don't be the person that is thinking of reasons that we can't, or just sitting there silently when you could be looking into it. You could be trying to figure out a solution, right? Try to think of ways to insert yourself more technically into things. Because if you start at a low level, SEO company, help desk, wherever you are, and you just kind of clock in, do exactly what you're told, clock out. Hey, that's not that bad. At least you can go on your resume. It's something you can sell. But if you really want to push yourself forward, what I would recommend you do is try to get your hands dirty. Figure out what it is that people don't want to deal with, because there are going to be those things that people do not want to touch. And if you can be the person that is going to go in there and touch it, the guy that wears the hazard suit walks in, works on that stuff, all of a sudden you're valuable. You're not just one other employee in the ranks that comes in, does their job, and leaves. You're a person who is actually needed at that point. You're a person that if they lost you, they would have a problem. And I'm not trying to say to work in a way that makes that the case intentionally. Like, don't write really complicated code or anything just so they can't fire you. I'm not telling you to do that. But put yourself in a position where you're doing something that other people don't want to do. Because that is the key to being successful in the tech industry, is doing the hard stuff. You have to do the things that, other people, because if other people could do it, they just do it, right? They just go in, they do it, it would be no big deal. they wouldn't need you. And you don't want to be in a position where they don't need you. Now, all that being said, when you're starting out, especially if you're doing a degree or something at the time, just getting by, getting your hours in, getting that timer racked up, as I'd say, you're you're trying to build your experience because there are several things that matter on a resume. Um, a big thing is a degree or certifications. Uh, I'd say the degree stands pretty high up there, especially with certain organizations that require you to have a degree if you want to work for them. So you need that degree, right? You need it. It's something that you're going to have to work towards, and it's going to make everything else in your life harder because it's going to take up a lot of your time. Uh, Not to say it's not valuable in itself, and not to say what you do in school is not valuable in itself, because it very much is. But the main thing is that when you start working in IT to some degree, whether that's a little SEO remote job or help desk, whatever menial thing in IT you're doing, your clock started now. That timer started now, right? You're going, you're putting this many years experience in IT, right? Even though maybe it was help desk, you were answering phone calls, resetting passwords, something that a lot of people might think, oh, well, that's nothing. Well, it's not nothing. It's experience, and it counts. And so you want to keep going to work, keep getting that clock in time basically. But beyond that, the main thing is, if you can, push yourself forward. And this is what I tried to do when I went to ServiceNow, and eventually I wanted an internship. Started working for ServiceNow. They just set up an office right next to the university, and I had two offers for an IT internship. One was from FIS, really good company, and it was a sysadmin internship, something that I'm surprised even today that I didn't take. Sysadmin is a pretty good role. That would have been an internship that sets me in a career field. There are several reasons I didn't. First, if I'm being honest, the offer was lower than the one from ServiceNow. Another reason is because ServiceNow is like right around the corner from the university. Very easy for me to get to, very convenient. Um, Another thing was that ServiceNow was a software company, and I had a passion for development. That's really what I wanted to do, and just seeing that word software company when I looked them up, that really got me. But the thing I didn't like about it was support, right? So I've spoken about this before, so I'll just do it briefly. Support at a cloud computing company is not really help desk. You are going to be working technical problems and going into code a lot of times, although they do try to not, they don't want you to write the code for people, but you're going to have to look at it and say, oh, okay, this is broken because. And, those kinds of things happen. But a lot of, it was really weird for me when I saw it. I'm like, okay, what kind of job requires that you have interpersonal skills, like what else did they say? Customer service, right? Big deal. But then Java, JavaScript, SQL. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't make sense. Let's figure out what's going on, right? And I applied, and I got a call, and I ended up getting the offer from FIS and the offer from ServiceNow at about the same time. And I went with ServiceNow. Had no idea what ServiceNow was at the time. Didn't know it was a development platform until a few weeks in when my manager told me that. And then I started paying attention that I was supporting these people, and I would realize they were developers. That, like, I would see their role in their email footers that said ServiceNow developer. So I was like, okay, they're a developer and they're coming to me for help. First of all, that didn't feel right. I'm like, I think they probably know a lot more about this than I do. But what it would turn out is that they were looking for kind of a rubber duck, is what we call it in the community, that somebody to go through the problem with, another person that can put eyes on the problem, maybe has a few more resources, knows people that work at ServiceNow, the people that develop the platform. Maybe there's some hidden information they don't know, some function out there that isn't well documented that they could use to solve this problem, right? So, yeah, I would work that, and it was good. It was a good job. It was a good internship. I was there for 10 months, I think. Yeah, 10 months. Started in February, finished in December. And at that point, I had another situation where I had two offers, right? So one was from ServiceNow, and it was for basically the full-time, real deal TSE role. So TSE is Technical Support Engineer, something I felt very strangely about because hey, for on one side there's engineers in my title. I'm an engineer. That feels great. But on the other side, technical support, that sounds like help desk. I don't want to be full-time help desk, right? I'm not saying, going back to what I was saying earlier, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. It's something that you can definitely get your foot in the door. If you can find the opportunity and you're trying to get into IT, I highly recommend you do it. I highly recommend you get into that technical support role, and you will have that time to put on your resume. But for me, I was further into it. I had done SEO for 2 years, which is a role I would say is a lot like technical, pretty low level. You're not really doing that much, and then you want to work your way up. So I saw the role at ServiceNow, and I saw that there was this other role out there that I applied for uh, at Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory. So I'm still proud today that they uh, were interested in me, and it was for a junior ServiceNow developer. Now, I've heard a lot of people on YouTube saying, "Oh, don't go for a junior role. You just go for the mid level at least, or senior. Just everybody's doing the same work." That's bullshit. It's totally bullshit because as a junior, you don't know as much as a senior who's been working with the technology for longer. I've seen videos where they say, "Oh, here's the junior developer, here's the mid-level developer. They're doing the same work, same skill level, getting the same amount done, but the junior doesn't get paid as much." So maybe that's true somewhere, but I haven't seen it. What I've seen is basically the mid-level people actually have more experience in it, and they help the junior people to get more experience in it. So I don't really know where that's coming from. It doesn't seem to be true to me. I think it's some kind of ploy, honestly, but I'm not sure, honestly. I'm sure it's probably true somewhere. I can see it being true somewhere. But anyway, junior ServiceNow developer role. I wanted to be a developer. I wanted to do something where I was writing code and where I was making things and solving problems like that. The TSC role isn't bad. The thing about cloud computing type, TSC thing with a development platform like that is you will be working with code, but you're not going to be really writing it, and you're going to be dissuaded from writing it. I would say they're going to tell you, please don't do that because then we're responsible for it, and they're right. It does involve more customer service skills that you need to be a decent person, if I can say that. You need to be polite. You need to talk to other engineers, and they are your customer basically. Because what really happens with this is ServiceNow makes money, just like other companies like Oracle. They make money off of their platforms, right? So they're going to be developing in that platform, but they're also paying licensing fees, right? They're paying big money. These smaller, not always smaller, but these other companies are paying money to this software company to use their software and use their platform. Even a development platform comes with licensing fees, where if you have so many users, that's going to cost you more and more money. Hey, you developed most of this on your own, but you know what? You used our platform. That's the way they see it, and that's the way it is. You're going to pay for it. Hey, if you want to go write something in C, if you want to go write something in Java, you go right on ahead. That's the way it's looked at, and companies in general in IT tend to go with these development platforms that allow developers to do pretty much anything they want, but make it easier. Where you can have a team of say 3, 4, 5 people to support a very large operation versus having to hire a team of 100 developers to make this thing for you. That's just not it's not practical for a company. So that's kind of how it works. Anyway, I digress. So it's the role being a TSC didn't appeal to me as much as being a developer. And plus, it was in Santa Clara, California. We're talking Silicon Valley here. They were not willing to pay enough to live there. That's the way I see it anyway. They weren't even willing to pay as much as the developer position in Maryland was, which Maryland is not the cheapest place to live, but it's certainly no California. It's not that bad. So I ended up going with the developer job in Maryland, and I'm very happy I did right now. I'm really enjoying it. Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's sort of my story. Um, it starts as just, they say you got to get your foot in the door, right? You have to get your foot in the door, and you probably heard that expression a million times if you're trying to get in IT. You have to get your foot in the door. One of the biggest things, piece of advice I can give you on getting your foot in the door is go out, meet people, and be passionate about what you're doing. If you're passionate about it, when you talk to people, you'll want to talk about it. You know, and I guess I've heard a lot. Oh, that's easy to say. Just like it, right? You like it, so everybody else likes it. Yeah, that's not how it works, Mark. Right? That's I understand that, but there's also I'd give another side of that. You can choose what you like. You really can. When you're going into something new, especially something you're completely unaware of, you can say, you know what? I'm going to like this. I've heard about it. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be technical. It's going to be complicated. It's going to be a journey, but I'm going to like it. That's what you can tell yourself. If you tell yourself you're going to like something as you go into it, I'd say chances are you will. And realizing that, life is kind of like a movie, that there will be bad times, right? There will be a point at which you, the hero, are down on your luck and things are not going well and things look grim. And that'll happen a couple times within the movie, right? And if you view your life like that, it makes it easier to be very passionate about what you're doing because you realize that it's not all unicorns and rainbows. Um, at the same time, I can say this very personally, like really the best moments of my life have been working in IT, have been being a developer, have been hitting that problem that just knocks you down and failing. Failing, it sucks when it happens. Messing up sucks when it happens. It'll keep you up at night. You'll have some very bad nights, but you'll come back from it and you'll do better. I guess is what I'm saying. It all comes with the game. No matter what you decide to do, you're going to run into these obstacles, right? And you have to just keep going and look back on it like a movie is what I'd say. Look at that movie and realize how resilient you were, how interesting it was. The one thing I can say about IT is it's not boring. There's plenty of challenges to solve, plenty of interpersonal interactions that are worthy of a script. And I mean, maybe that's just where I work. I don't know. I really enjoy it. I come in, I do what I do, and I get really passionate about it. I think that it's important to find a way to love what you're doing. In IT, that's not hard because you're talking about the future of the world here. That 50 years ago, this stuff didn't really even exist. And now it changes our everyday lives day by day, and it has the potential to change it even more than it has so far. So you're in an industry, even if you're working for the sex toy company, you're in an industry where you're forwarding this stuff and you're a part of that. Don't forget that. You're a part of that, and it's something that you can keep that with you, that you're a part of that no matter what, even if you're working for the sex toy company. you know, it's a great career, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that come up about how to be successful in it, because it took me a long time to figure this stuff out. I was slow. Well, I wasn't slow, but I wasn't immediate to do everything right. Right? I did good, but there were opportunities that I may have passed up, and I, in hindsight, know that, hey, whoa, that was something. Now that I'm thinking back on it, I could have jumped in on that. I could have been that solution to that problem. I could have set up a server for that. I could have written some code that handled that. And that would have had my name on it, right, to that company that, oh yeah, Mark did that thing. If it breaks, oh, we need to go to Mark because that's his thing, right? All of a sudden, you're kind of important. Um, but it takes a while with confidence. Don't ever be underconfident. I'd say there's a lot of a lot of opportunities for you to insert yourself, and it's easy to look at them and say, well, I'm not that person, right? I don't know how to code in PHP. I don't know how to do JavaScript. I don't know Angular. I don't know React. Um, yeah, this needs to be done by someone else. It is an easy thing to think. But what you can also do is you can sit down and say, okay, this is done this way. Let's pull up a few YouTube videos. Let's see how hard this is. Can I have a menu working in a 10-minute YouTube video? Is it that easy? Yeah, a lot of times it is. A lot of times it is. Now, the menu they show you in the YouTube video, it's not the same menu that you need to do. But hey, they made something really similar in 10 minutes on a YouTube video. 10 minutes. Within an hour, I could probably do the same thing that they did just by following the video. And within, many more hours, I could probably get it to do what the company I'm working for wants it to do. Or maybe what I want it to do if you're just doing a personal project. And that's another thing I'd recommend is do personal projects. What better do you have to do, honestly? If your career is important to you, if this is what you want to do, and if you enjoy it, do something fun. Make yourself a website, make a little app, make a phone app. That's one of the most fun things to do because you can open up your IDE, write your code, and then plug your phone in and compile it right to your phone. And it's so cool to write a bunch of code, push a button, then pull your phone out, unlock it, and it's like, oh, here it is. It's on my phone. And look, I'm communicating with Facebook or Twitter, and I'm getting data back from them. It's really fun. And all of those things, everything I've mentioned, are things that can go on your resume. You put them on your resume, and that's, if you're going to get anything out of this video, it's that. Do not be afraid to put these things on your resume, because here's what's going to happen. A company is going to call you in for an interview if you're so lucky, and they're going to look at your resume and say, oh, hey, you have this on your resume. What did you do with this? And you might be a little intimidated at first, like, oh God, they're going to figure me out. I was just copying, pasting code off Stack Overflow, or I just read a YouTube tutorial. Oh no, but I mean, that's not like what's going to happen. What's going to happen is you're just going to say, okay, well, yeah, I wanted to do it for this reason, and maybe that reason is just because I felt like it, and I looked this up, and I read some tutorials, and I started setting it up, and I did this. I used this technology. You just tell them what happened, and they're not going to be like, oh, you were fooling us. We thought you did this for real. No, they're going to be like, they're going to be impressed, is what they're going to be, because you sat down and you did something, and you did the research. Because the thing is, everybody in IT is Googling everything they do, right? They really are. That's just the fact of the matter. There's nothing bad about that. Google is the best way to look things up these days. If you were working 50 years ago, you would have been popping open your books, right? And nobody looks down on that like, oh, you just read it in a book, right? No, that's actually like fine. But the thing is, Googling things is really no different. You're just doing your research, looking at your documentation. So yeah, companies are going to like that. They're going to like the idea that you wanted to do something, you did the research, and then you put it together, and you made it work. And so that's just what you tell them. You tell them what happened. You put it on your resume, you tell them what happened. And hey, maybe they aren't impressed. Maybe they were expecting something more. But you didn't lie. I mean, what you put on your resume, it's what you did, right? It's what happened. So you're fine. And I've never seen a situation where anyone was anything less than impressed with something like that. Whether it be a project you did at work or a project you did in your personal time, I would say a good resume has your degree, hopefully you have that. If you don't, maybe it doesn't have that. Certifications, if you have any of those are good too. Has your work experience. That is a very important thing, probably second to the degree, if you're just trying to get into the industry, second to your degree, is your work experience. And it's a very close second. Um, you have that degree, but then you have your work experience, and that work experience matters a lot to employers. That sets you apart from every other person with a degree, right? Because there are a lot of people coming out of college that have IT, computer science, those types of degrees. And yeah, so what makes you different? And that work experience is the number one thing that you can have to set you apart. Now, further down the road, the work experience is going to matter more than the degree. But, right now you're just getting into it. So let's approach it as it comes. Then you want to have your personal projects, if you have any. And I had a little section on my resume about an eighth, of the resume itself was my personal project, my server, languages I used, what I did with it, just very briefly. Put that on there, right? And then your skills. Your skills are important too. Honestly, in some ways, they're the most important thing. But this can be a challenging one to list your skills because there are several ways to do it. It's really hard to list your skills because basically, if you've done something for 2 weeks, do you feel confident putting it on your resume? If you did something for half a year, 2 years ago, do you feel confident putting it on your resume? Yeah, that's a hard question to answer. And I'd say lean towards putting it because in an interview, you can say, I did this 2 years ago for 6 months. I still remember it okay. I'm sure I could pick it up again if I needed to. And you're just being honest. You said you had that skill. You do have that skill because you proved you could do that skill. You did it. And so you can put it there. Now, if you've completely forgotten something and it's something a company wants, at least go and refresh yourself before you go into the interview. I'll say that. Don't just go in and say, yeah, I don't remember anything about it. I did it, but that's just wasting everyone's time, right? So, but if it's something that the company's not looking for, but it's something you did 2 years ago for 6 months, you don't really remember anything, put it down. And if it does come up, you can just be honest with them. Say, yep, it took a while. It'll take a while, I should say, for me to remember how to do this skill. I did it 2 years ago for 6 months, and I'm a little rusty, but I have no doubt I can pick it up real fast. Right? Not likely to happen, but just in case, right? So yeah, I think I'm all out of advice for this video, and this is a very long video. I did not intend it to be this long, but if you want more advice on this kind of stuff, feel free to send me a message. I really enjoy helping with these kinds of things. I like teaching code. That's one of the biggest things that I like to do. I'm a ServiceNow developer, so now I work a lot in JavaScript, and I work with the ServiceNow platform. So I'd be more than happy to help anyone with that is trying to do it. Well, thanks for watching.